So let's assume that this equipment schedule so far has enough information. I mean, we can enter some random catalog information if we want at this point. You know, just you have a manufacturer, and again, just kind of ignore these ridiculous dialog boxes, and it's got a model number. That's fine. And that was the junction box in NEMA 12. Okay, that's a good one. That's the one I want to highlight for the next example. So let's go ahead and open the number entry view. And you can see here everything that you've given a description and catalog information. This all shows up here. This is really the view that you're going to use to sort and group your entries so that you can control how they will appear on the final equipment schedule. Let's see. By default, these are not sorted. These don't get sorted at all. They just get filtered. They get grouped. So you can see that all the blank ones, they're really ordered by description, I believe. Let's take a look and I'll verify that. Yeah, they're sorted by description. So description is the controlling factor here. If you want to control how if you want to change the look of this so it looks closer to the production view, you can change this to part number. It will sort them by part number. Of course, the problem with that is that it actually groups them by part number. If you do sort by part number, then you have to itemize every instance. I think that's the issue. Yeah. If you sort by part number, you have to show everything. You have to itemize everything so that nothing gets left out. If you do description, then everything with a common description will get lumped together. And that's kind of what we want. We want the descriptions to be lumped together so we can determine that what's going to show up on the final schedule. For instance, we've got our device box. We'll just assign that number. We already have a number 2, so we'll give that number 1. Yes, we know that's changing. I have that for number 3. Now if we take a look here, we've got a junction box NEMA 12, single hinge screw clamp cover, 14 by 14 by 8. Another one with, looks like a typo because it's got single hinge clamp cover. So these really should be the same device, but right now they're showing up as 2 different line items. And as long as you give them the right catalog information, contractor will buy both of them. But let's say that we want to optimize our schedule and make it look a little more professional. We can just take the description for the second one and change it to be the description of the first one. And now because this is set to sort by description, all the items with that description are lumped together, and now they have quantity 2, and we can assign them a common part number. If you noticed before, the part number for the second device was 1, 2, 3, 4. The first one didn't have a part number. As we mentioned before, when Revit detects conflicting information in a sorted schedule, it will just give you a blank value, so you have to enter the information fresh. So you can either keep the old number by kind of cross-referencing it with the step 1 schedule, or in this case, number wasn't that important, so we'll just enter number 4. 5, yes. We'll do 6, and it's important at this stage it's important really at each stage of the scheduling process to complete the schedule as far as you can before moving on. Because as you'll notice, like with this enclosure, we actually lost the manufacturer and model number that we had entered for the junction box with the erroneous description. So how do we fix that? Well, it takes a little bit of elbow grease. We just need to look for now that both of these have the same description, we can go into this one, into the data entry view, look for two devices with the same description. That's this one and this one, and then we just make sure that we match whatever value is here. We match it in the same pull down menu. So this one was just manufacturer, so that's a manufacturer. This one was that just model number, so select that model number. And now if we go back to the number entry view, the data should be reconciled. Yep, there it is. Now that these two items both have the same manufacturer and model number, the data shows up properly. And as we can see, we've got part numbers for everything. So now let's take a look at the production equipment schedule. You can see it sorts everything by part number, gives all the descriptions, catalog information that we've placed in the model. And if we want to go for a production view and see what that looks like, go ahead and place it on the sheet. This one's already been split, but let's go ahead and assume that we want that this is a really long schedule. Maybe you have a couple hundred pieces of equipment or really long descriptions, so that you're doing your full specification here in the equipment schedule itself. You end up with a really long schedule. You just control that by creating a duplicate schedule. We'll rename this one to schedule number 1, and then we'll call this one schedule number 2. Oops. And for schedule 1, we'll filter it so that we're not going to show any equipment. We're not going to show anything that is set to no scheduled equipment is false. So it will filter out anything that is not to be scheduled. And you notice that here there are none of the conduit fittings that we pulled out. We selected that they are not to be scheduled. They're not being scheduled. And we're going to do the part number is greater than or equal to 1, but it is also less than or equal to 4. So that'll be our schedule number 1. And then for schedule number 2, we will set a corresponding filter so that the part number is greater than or equal to 5 and less than or equal to, I don't know, 100. So now we've got second equipment schedule. So there was a schedule number 1 here. It shows up is filtered to just pull out the first 4 items, and schedule 2 is pulls out the next nth number items. And of course you can recombine the splits. And there we go. There are equipment schedules. You can of course extend these so that they take up 2 columns. They can take up the whole page. It's however you want to format this one. But that is the process of equipment scheduling. It's somewhat tedious, especially with the new data entry dialogues that come up in Revit. But the power of this is that as you change items, as we add items rather to the catalog of families that we put in our models, a lot of this information should get to be, you know, pre-populated with the families themselves, and as you place them in the model, all this manufacturer model number information will come up automatically. You won't even have to enter it yourself. So over time this will become much more efficient. But for now, that concludes our scheduling portion of the Revit How-To videos.